Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests bring you insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for soul growth. Come journey with us through astrology's energetic cycles and get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sue Minahan. This is Talk Cosmos, and today we do have the subject of Mars opposite Pluto, a dynamic pair. It's a transmutive energy at best, and for purpose of action and the deeper shadows that we look at. But we're looking at it from various angles, and we're going to see how it energizes us. You can gather on acting on our evolving visions. There's hope on the horizon, wherever we might consider, when we really center within and use these energies. Okay, that's enough for me, because now we have our wonderful panel, Planet Buzz.
Focusing on perspectives of pattern planet cycle relationships and understanding their archetypal energy consciousness, reflecting through history, current events, mythology, and philosophical questions, these are the members of Planet Buzz.
I'm Sue Minahan, founder of Talk Cosmos since 2018. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, consultant, speaker, writer, vibrational astrology student, Dwarf Planet University graduate, Kepler Astrology Toastmasters Club charter member. I have a fine arts music degree plus a certificate in jazz. I'm an artist, musician, and certified color energy life coach. Especially, I love mythology and esoteric philosophies.
And I'm Dr. Laura Tad. I work as a spiritually oriented psychological astrologer with students and clients around the world. As a counselor, writer, and educator, I love helping people recognize their inner strengths, take advantage of auspicious moments, and navigate times of challenge with greater ease. On my own podcast, Mythic Sky Storytime, I discuss astrology, mythology, and actualizing our full potential. Learn more at mythicsky.com.
Plus, a special guest who we will introduce in just a short moment.
And as the ancient Hermetic code reveals,
as below, so above. As above, so below.
Yes. Oh, yes, it is. Hi, Laura. Dr. Tad, it's great to see you.
Yes, it's good to be back, Sue.
And especially, I am very pleased to introduce a very special guest, Adam Gainsburg. Hi, Adam.
Hi, Sue.
It's a treat. It's been a few years, and it's just wonderful. Now, Adam Gainsburg is a leading astrologer on Mars and Venus cycles and their phases. And let's go into there with Yes, he founded Soul Sign Astrology. It empowers an individual's unique marriage of their personal dharma and timeless being. Considered, I might add, at the start, at the very moment of their first sacred breath. But Adam has written numerous books on Pluto, Chiron, Venus, and I don't know if you have one on Mars, but I know I've been at a wonderful workshop at Washington Astrological Society about Mars, and you have great classes, training techniques in Mars. What through right now. And I will end as the slide presents, because we have a podcast too. You were nominated for a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2018. Notable cause. So thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Sue.
Yeah. And, perhaps we'll begin with you talking a bit about this cycle. It is one that, from research here, recognizing it was from 2023, late 2023 until early 2026. And it's not just when Mars it's a combination. I should let you really discuss this, but it's a Capricorn. Go ahead. I could talk, but I think you'll do it better.
Well, My work with the phases of planets in the sun, meaning the heliacal cycles and phases of the planets. An astrologer can use any framework to make meaning of these things. You can use an archetypal framework. You can use a spiritual framework. I like to use a basic human developmental framework because this way it keeps it really tangible for us when we're both learning and then trying to live by these cycles and phases. So you can see at the bottom left, the inception phase, that's the first phase of the Mars cycle. That's when Mars conjuncts the sun, as it shows there. This is just like, as a human being, this is our inception or our conception. This is when we have both, when our parents join together sexually to produce the start of our body, which is the start of our life. But as astrology knows, we don't associate ourselves with that conception point as much. We always look at our birth experience. So that would be called here the emergence phase. So for this cycle, this is the Capricorn cycle of Mars, because at that moment when Mars had reached the emergence phase, which is 15 degrees from the sun, Mars was in the sign of Capricorn. And so every Mars cycle with the sun is roughly 2 years long. It's either a little bit before, a little bit earlier than 2 years, a little bit later than 2 years. Also, these phases that are written here on the graph, these are the 13 phases of the Mars cycle. So I really want to make sure here what everyone has a basic understanding of what these phases are. These phases are not just something to look at and go, oh, I was born in the blah, blah phase. These phases actually describe a more subtle level of our inner masculine self. This is women and men equally. So, for example, if you were born in the explorations phase, as you can see there, the fourth phase starting at the bottom left, then that means that the themes of that phase are how your inner self, in other words, the masculine principle, the sacred masculine within you, how you're wired with that, how that's best meant to come out and contribute positively to the world in a meaningful way for you. So essentially, the chart Mars is described by sign, house, and aspects, and that tells us about our inner masculine self. Phase Mars talks about how that inner masculine self is best meant to come forward into the collective, how we're meant to contribute. I call it a masculine dharma. So that's what we're meeting in here. If you could go back on the prior slide, Sue.
Sure. And I'm sorry about that. I was trying to, yes, indeed. There you go. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so this is the beginning of the cycle. You can see there where Mars and the sun conjoined at 25 Scorpio. That's the inception. And then about a month and a half or 2 months later, Mars gets to Capricorn, and that's when Mars is separate enough from the sun to be visible. And just like Mars rising for the first time, beautiful, thank you, in this emergence phase, that's our birth phase. So like just when our body is first seen from out of the womb, and we call it the birth moment, Mars and Venus and Mercury and Jupiter and Saturn all have these birth moments as well. And this was this was the chart of our current Capricorn masculinity that birthed. You can see Mars is at 3 Capricorn. The sun was around 14 or 15 degrees from then. So that was so the sun was also in Capricorn. But you can see that Pluto was at the very end of the sign that Mars is birthing in. And all of that Sag just before it. So this, and in my calendar, I come out with an extensive calendar with phase descriptions and interpretations of each of the phases and all the events, all the aspects that Mars makes and everything. I go into some of these themes here. So where we are now is the Mars Destiny Challenge phase. So where the Destiny Challenge phase is the 10th of 13 phases. So this is the part where Mars is squared, is that April 13, 2025. Yeah. Okay. Let me just see here. Yes, that's right. Sorry. Yes, this is the phase where Mars is square to the sun. And I give a wide orb. I give 4 degrees applying and 4 degrees separating, because this is working at a collective level. And what this is, Sue, is this where we're having this conversation now is the challenge phase, the evening sky or the destiny challenge phase is when our individual self-expression now needs to become not challenged, but to find its limits within the society. So, for example, I just can't keep expressing and doing whatever I subjectively want forever. I learned that there's a society. There are others that my actions and choices and words have an impact on. And that's what the challenge phase is. It's a challenge to reduce the need to be our individual self in order to discover or empower our larger destiny, our effect on a larger, with a larger reach, even posthumously. So I hope that's all making sense, Sue.
I think we love it. Laura, turn your camera on now. Thanks. I guess we don't usually do that. So this is all a new challenge.
Cool.
Yes. And I'm so glad these slides worked beautifully.
Yeah, they did. Thank you.
So amazing to consider in many respects. I don't know, Laura, if you have a comment offhand. We do have one more slide showing what is it? Let's see, in this particular series, the next synodic cycle, which will be January 9th, as you indicated. But that isn't the cycle because it emerges when the sun emerges, not sun, but when Mars emerges, it'll be another.
It'll be Aquarius.
The next cycle that you can see here is the conjunction is in Capricorn. The next cycle will actually be the Pisces cycle of Mars, because Mars will have ingressed into Pisces by the time we can actually see Mars basically in the morning sky before sunrise, now distant enough from the sun that Mars is rising early enough that we can see him with our naked eye observation. That's the real meaning of birth. That's why I mentioned before about
yes,
the body.
And it is within the sky, those rays. It's usually 15 degrees. I know we often look at Mercury a few times we can in the dawn or dusk, when finally it's in degrees. I think yes, I have seen it, but not enough.
So can you go back one slide?
Of course.
I just want to ask you guys, I just want to point out something here. In this Destiny Challenge phase, I just want to point out, so pretend Mars as a human being, pretend Mars through this Capricorn cycle as a human being. This would be the point where the person has to decide whether they keep on going and going and going for their personal success, or they back out of that career and they start looking at what kind of a difference I can make, what kind of a deeper meaning in life that I can acquire and connect to. And look at the sign of Mars. So Mars in his Destiny Challenge phase within the Capricorn cycle is in the sign of Cancer. So this is where Mars is in fall.
Go ahead. I'm ringing bells everywhere. This is totally something that I've been working with, and I've thought of it more of expansion and contraction, looking at my own charts. But This is really evident. And just to look at, the release point, there's a kite there with the south node. It's how I organize. I'm realizing, and Virgo happens to be evident in my chart strongly from the rising 29 degrees, and then my Saturn is 0, but just as pointers, because I'm realizing I can re-strategize how I even think of my organization with everything. It's a monumental process.
That's great. I mean, what that brings up for me is the shared earth element of your Virgo and within this overall Capricorn cycle. A lot has happened in this Mars cycle. A lot tangibly in the world has happened.
It has.
And this Destiny Challenge phase to me signals, one of the things it says to me is a lot of emotional triggers get triggered.
Yeah.
So just a question, Adam. So with it being in Cancer, is part of it happens to line up this way with this particular one, it being the opposite sign as the phase. Is that typically how the Destiny Challenge point falls as well?
Typically, yes. In every in every cycle, Laura, I would say 80 to 90% of the time this is so. Sometimes the cycle itself is so shortened, it's like only 22 and a half, 23 months. And in that case, sometimes it can slip out of the sign of opposition from the sign of cycle. But yes, and this is when studying all of this, when I came up with when I created this cycle, or I really feel received it from Mars, the cycle and the phases, and I was looking for where to divide what are the key events. I saw this, I was like, oh my God, like I forget the number, 7, 8, or 9 times out of 10, Mars is in his opposite sign at the exact waning square with the sun.
That's fascinating too, to consider that our weakest link is if we can't bridge that, then that's necessary to make a real foundation, for growth going ahead.
I totally agree. So many of us today, especially public astrologers, we bandy about words like destiny and empowerment and all this. But to actually achieve a destiny, there has to be very deep sacrifice of what we've known. There has to be sometimes a lot of loss that we have to go through in order to shove off the skin of that, how we've been living and comfortable and wonderful and yummy and warm. We have to shove that off in order to discover there's a larger purpose for me that I'm just a small part of. But in order for me to achieve that purpose, or at least my part of it, I can't keep being in the comfortable zone that I've been. And that's what this Mars in fall is.
Or the conditioning, and looking at the
beautiful, the conditioning. Yes.
Conditioning. What you expressed there was very much Sedna, one of the dwarf planet that's way out, that has 11,406 orbit and currently just ingressed Gemini for the next 44 years. It's not a real long, versus it can go into Scorpio or Sagittarius. It's opposition of like 1,500 years. And that was back in the Egyptian times. But that's exactly the mythology where her ideas were connected to the conditioned society and the ideas, and she had to release. I mean, they tell it a little bit more graphically, as far as being thrown out of but essentially that was the message. Yeah.
And this what's really unique to me is, like you mentioned, the kite pattern, but also simpler than that, simply all of these planets in rough trine from Mars to Mars, Venus and Saturn and Rahu, North Node, and Mercury, and even out of sign Neptune, like all of these planetary energies receiving/giving a trine to Mars at his Destiny Challenge phase. I think there's a lot more happening. Like Mars is kind of like he's got a lot in his bag that he's working through right now.
And what kind of orb do you give? Because actually this is today's chart, not when it perfects, which will be a couple days.
Right.
No, it does. It is today.
The sun's at 20. And Mars is at 28, so I'm in terms of the exact square.
Yeah, here.
Well, I think, well, I remember that Adam said it was today that it happened. That's why I chose
I have my handy dandy calendar here. It starts today because I give it 4 degrees of orb applying, Laura, and then I give 4 degrees afterwards too. So it's a total of 14 days from the 13th to the 28th of April. Yeah.
Potent.
Yeah.
Very, yeah. And in this phase, Mars will enter Leo.
Mm-hmm.
So
as it moves into that
perfects the opposition.
Exactly.
Pluto.
Exactly.
And that's
Well,
still
here we
within
go.
that orb, right?
I'm sorry,
or
Laura?
just after it gets out of that orb, then it perfects the opposition.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. What would you say about that, Laura?
I mean, it seems like it's a continued theme, even though that, right, this shedding of this, like a part of how I understood what you were saying, it's almost like that snake shedding its skin, right? Mm-hmm. To go into your destiny, you have to let go of everything that is not your destiny.
Yes.
And then that opposition is part of that almost alchemical piece that then allows the transformation, the rebirth piece of Pluto to happen, right? Almost like perhaps the square is that chrysalis phase of the butterfly, and then the rebirth with the opposition, beautiful. Potentially.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. And right. I don't know why, but this is coming up as you're speaking, Laura. A question, I guess, we can ask ourselves, not just us, but the listeners or the viewers here. How is Mars's movement, basically, how is Mars through Leo? How is Mars in Leo actualizing the overall Capricorn masculine destiny? How is the sign consciousness of Leo? How does it promise something for the full realization and embodiment and happiness for the Capricorn masculine? Because that's the overall cycle. That's the human being that's going through this.
Yeah. I would say right off the bat, I think of sovereignty at its best, which means that one has a mastery that is within oneself through the trials of experience, which means too that we have relinquished that which interferes with a destined purpose that we're meant to do, rather than emotional traumas and needs that, I mean, not that we do away with our emotional traumas and needs. It's just that we reburnish them, we rebrand them, we in a sense put them in a new kettle or something, or we integrate.
And I think too, just thinking about Leo as a native Mars and Leo,
yes,
that there's a piece of finding the joy in it, where Capricorn can take things so serious or feel burdened by responsibility. And I think that pairing it with that Leonian energy is finding joy and play in that responsibility as opposed to the burden.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So true, Laura. That's so good. And I would say something similar. I would say Mars in Leo, the Capricorn masculine then remembers to personalize life and not make everything so dry or so objective and important and duty bound.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
To repersonalize at a higher turn of the spiral.
Sure. Yeah, just because it's what's written in the manual, which is that sort of Capricorn approach to life, right?
No.
Actually, that idea that like there's no such thing as objectivity, to bring in the subjective in terms of the interpretation of the manual, honoring the fact that it's all through your lens, because that's the only way you can see the world.
Always. Yes, that's right. That's right.
It is quite a beautiful sense of a combination is all I can think of. I mean, right here we have Mars in Leo, also affecting this Capricornian cycle within it. And then we have Pluto in Aquarius that for modern people like myself, I think of Uranus, but then for traditional, it's Saturn. So not arguing, just realizing they both have their ways. But still, it's reconnecting the terms of Saturn and largely perhaps with our awareness of it, because again and again it's brought out that in order to have anything materialized, it has to have that conceptual idea, that vision, that idea ahead of time. You don't just you have it is mystical in its sense. It's not just the material. In fact, I was reading how the material comes from matter that comes from, I have a whole thing on it, darn it.
I think it's mother.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Which was originally not conceived of. It was an inconceived assumption about life. And then the concept of mother was put to it once the connection in human consciousness early on was made between babies birthing and only the mother's body could feed the child. Like it was a process for us humans to discover the source.
It's pretty perfect here that Mars is, just ground us into this before we leave, that between Cancer, such as you've both been bringing up, into Leo, because it is the birth and the child or creativity of the process. It's so many archetypal dimensions. Just so personal, really.
Yeah.
And for those watching or perhaps listening, this slide brings up the fact that Mars is in its opposition now, but Mars is also in its shadow path, because since October 4th, it started this path in Cancer at 17 degrees, and then December 6th went into Leo, which
retrograde is on the 6th. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Laura. That's right.
Yeah.
And then shifting into this year, it's stationed direct in February, in the 23rd and 24th, at 17 degrees Cancer, and has yet to go into Leo. It won't be until, just a few days, right?
Right.
In a week, on the 17th and 18th. And then finally in May, it finishes it when it returns to 6 degrees Leo, which happens to be also the U.S. North Node, give or take a few minutes. So this is also for our country, and we can only review quickly in our brain how monumental this period has been.
And I would say too, Sue, on that point, that whatever path America or the United States is on then, when Mars exits its shadow, retrograde shadow path, because it's it's just after the destiny, and now it's moved into the next phase. This is the track that it's on. This will be the path that it's going on, and this is not about it's not about opinion.
No, it's just the facts of what settles. It's like sediment. It does work. Well, we have a month and a half of. We'll wait and see. At this moment, we're going to come back. We have Adam Gainsburg and Dr. Laura Tad with us for Planet Buzz. Come back. We have a lot more about Mars and Pluto. Thank you. I'm Sue. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We're currently in the period of Aries. By leaving a cycle based upon completion, the energy of Aries sparks initiation, creating action to separate into a new cycle of life. It's a fire sign, which means it will involve great emotion. And because separation may create resistance, it also takes great courage to break away to new ways of becoming.
Talk Cosmos brings insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for the soul growth with hour-long programs. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel and Facebook page. While you're there, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. And to find out about upcoming programs, sign up for the newsletter at talkcosmos.com. So grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
This is Martha Norwalk every Sunday morning beginning at 9 a.m. Thanks in part to Dr. Nils Rasmussen at healingministryforanimals.com. We cover the world of animals. This week, April 20th, it's Behavior Training and Healing Sunday with me, and talk with your human or animal loved ones on this side or the other, and private readings with Natasha. Hope you can join us and plan to call in with your questions for either one of us. Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Miss a show on KKNW? Check out 1150kknw.com for podcasts of many of our programs. That's 1150kknw.com.
Okay, let's keep going. Generally speaking, Mars just left out of bounds on the 7th. It's been there since January 1st. So for any of you, this has been a huge extra emphasis when it is outside the sun's orbit of 23, and I think is it 0.44 minutes or is it 26, Adam? I know it's one or the other. So anyway, of the ecliptic path, meaning that, yeah.
It's 23 and a quarter. Yeah.
Okay, good. It's 26. Thanks. And there's this point of Thales, which I won't get into, but it is where there's a focal point that's mitigating an opposition. And we have this opposition chart for the first one on January 3rd. And I don't know if we'll go into it. Although, Laura, I know that you were bringing up the fact that it happened to be, and this is when Mars was retrograde, and it was just prior to the Los Angeles fires there in California, which, of course, was everything about fire. And it was the wind and an enormously tragic event, such as seems to be occurring. Shall I go on? I know we have a lot of slides.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just sort of looking at, the one that was in the Capricorn was right before the election, and then just sort of thinking quickly what was close to the one in January. The fires in LA started on the 7th.
And the importance too, folks, is that this is when Pluto was in Aquarius, because there was one earlier with it in Cancer and Capricorn, but now we're speaking of Leo and Aquarius as far as this cycle goes.
So the first one that any of us alive have experienced with Pluto in Aquarius, right? And there'll be several of them over the next 20 years, but it was the first one.
And the next one is not long ahead. I mean, recognizing that it'll be, as you had said, Adam, 2 days prior to when
the end of the Destiny Challenge phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we still have these stelliums in Aries and Pisces. It's like the ending and the beginning, the starting of the seed and the return to the womb to find out maybe what's there, or put it in the kettle and see what steams up. It's hard to know. It's a real kaleidoscope.
Yeah, for me, when I look at these two stelliums, my eyes, because I've been looking at this for months now, my heart always draws me to the Pisces stellium first. I mean, the moon is so quick, you can take that out of it. The moon's just moving around everything. And the sun at this point has already transitioned into Taurus. So really you only have, is that Sedna?
No, I don't think I had Sedna because it's in Gemini. And it was
What's that, 25?
Let's see if I can see
it. Is that Eris?
Yeah.
It's Eris.
Yes. Oh, it is. Eris. Yes.
Chiron, yeah.
Right. So Eris has been there forever, like all of our lives. Chiron, Chiron is at 23 and Mercury. But I've been really looking at this Pisces thing. In fact, in about 2 weeks, I'm co-leading an online attunement activation called Embracing the End of the Age. And our assumption going into that is the age is ending. Age of what? The age of, or this form of human civilization. It's ending. It's not going to be just drop on a dime. There's going to be no war. There's going to be, I don't believe, some huge financial collapse. But there's going to be an accelerated eroding of the tenets of what we've called society. And that erosion can often be seen in the sign of Neptune, of Pisces. Because, like I like to say, Pisces is the sign that kind of collects all the detritus that was not dealt with in the prior 11.
Sure.
And it just kind of hangs there. And it's just like in the oceanic kind of environment. And it doesn't have to, it's so vast. That's the word for Pisces, vastness. And that Pisces is not out there. It's in each of us, our own vastness. That the more that out of that, with this Aries coming right out of that, like all those planets now transitioning, especially the Saturn, Neptune transitioning out, man, it's going to be like, we don't know what we're creating because we haven't really gotten in touch with the ocean yet.
Well, the tides, as you're speaking, we know on every shore, there's all the debris that gets washed up. It may be wonderful driftwood, but on the other hand, it's a lot of plastic that people you see are toting bags full away. And so, yes, it is a matter of sort of flushing out that system. You know, I guess this is a good time too. Usually I do it right after, but timing is hard to know. But here, Adam, you have the Mars gate, which is a course I think that's happening. Well, the next one will be in the fall.
Yes, that's right.
So
that's right. This is a course for men who usually men who have already been involved in deep transformational work, either on their own in a men's group or with their partner or wife. This is for men to go completely to the next level. It is a completely sacred space for men to discover their authentic masculinity through meeting all the ways that they are falsely believing who they are.
It's so important.
It's so important for men these days. I mean,
and
for everybody.
For everybody, yes, because we work in tandem. And yes, as far as females are concerned, since the 70s, there was the liberation and et cetera, however that has evolved to, but yet we all, as you have put, and we realize both energies within. And if one is speaking, the other one they both need authenticity of liberation.
Yes.
In females, I don't think are truly theirs until the men begin this involvement. It's not.
I think that depends on a woman's wiring. Some women are wired to be in a sacred evolutionary consort relationship for their liberation. Other women, it's been my experience, they don't actually need that. And the same thing for men. Some men do not need a partner. Some men do.
Oh, I see. I just meant within, those energies within. But yes, on those contexts too. No, you're absolutely right. I'm not suggesting everybody needs a partner. In fact, life sometimes teaches us that isn't going to work and figure it out.
But I think that speaks to, there's a lot of talk in the academic world of, well, what was women's studies and now it's more broad. But that part of the challenge, the failures of the feminist movement was that men didn't change. A lot of women did, and the larger male population didn't change in the way that so women working on mass outside of the home. Okay, well, that only really works if there's more balance with everybody taking on sharing the load.
It's been uneven. It's tried in different ways. I know I have nieces where the husband stayed home because it worked out that way. It just as one example, but there's so many layers to life and we're working through them.
Sure.
So thank you for Adam for that. And just to go through this, Adam has many, many capacities. It's a vast website with many sessions and possibilities. And you are having a retreat, which will be in July.
Yes.
People can, in person, which will be.
Very briefly. This retreat in July is timed to, not exactly, but timed to the Saturn-Neptune near conjunction.
Oh, yes.
Okay. This retreat is the second stage. The first being the embracing the end of the age, which is essentially a very deep support for releasing. Going in and proactively finding things that might be really working now, but we know our hearts, our bodies tell us I have to release this. So that release comes first in April with all the Pisces stellium. This is the second. This is the seeding, like the conception. And then the birth, which we're calling birthing our new age, or our new era, is in February of 26, when the exact conjunction of Saturn and Neptune happen at 0 Aries.
We'll have more conversations before that. That is exciting. It will be. Laura, you have a monthly astrological talk. It's the first Monday. I think it's in person, but
So it's here in Serenbe, which is just about 40 minutes south of Atlanta proper, at a barn where it's in the loft of the barn in the stables. So the horses are underneath, and it's a lovely spot where they're doing equine therapy with people, and they hold meditations up in the lofts. And so I'm there once a month talking about what's going on in the stars.
Awesome.
It is. Oh, horses are just such a magical creatures. Myself, I'm doing a dwarf planet series now and again with Liz. She has a channel. And next week will be U.S. global currents and astrological perspective of this cauldron of the cosmic mix that's churning, and a few of our past things that might be of interest to you. This is more of Astro Jam is a virtual astro theater with mystery charts predominantly. And the second with the turning season is vibrational astrology. Linda Barry works with David Cochran and is such a genius.
Yes, he is.
And thank you folks for signing up. And then there are 2 retreats. There's briefly speaking, Padma Life Coaching with Marie O'Neill is doing Caring for the Soul at the end of the month. And there will be an actual vibrational astrology conference on Labor Day with Linda and David, because the one that it'll be happening. And it has a track for beginners. So in case you wondered about it, good time to find out. Let's get back to, let's see, what are we doing here? It is October 3rd. Did I repeat this? No, I think it was the opposition on October 3rd. Oh, it's coming up. Oh, it's next year. This is when I know we were talking about the opposition that's happening on the 26th, and this will be in a year and a half when it returns at the same degree of 3 degrees. Yes. But it'll be in a new cycle. It'll be in the
So the Piscean cycle for this.
It will be in the Piscean cycle. So once again, it has a different relationship.
Yeah, October 3rd, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. 10 months. Yeah, that'll be with Mars Mars will be very bright as a morning star, getting higher and brighter, rising earlier and earlier, starting to see his red color. He's in the maturity phase here, I think.
Right, you can even see visually, right, how far apart it is from the sun, that it's, but it's a morning. The sun is
turn the wheel for folks.
Well, the sun's in the first, so that Mars is almost at the top of the sky with the sun having yet to rise.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Oh, that's right. Well, yeah, it's so close to the horizon, but gotcha. Very good. And
this one was just interesting because I was curious with the last Pluto Aquarius cycle, how that started with Mars. And it was the same degree of 3 degrees in 1780.
Critical reinforcements to the war.
I know. Well, of rebirthing what we are and who we are. We just had a Chiron return. And most interestingly, you brought this up, Laura. Maybe I'm jumping here, but that Mars is retrograde at the beginning of this cycle with Pluto in Aquarius, at the end of the cycle. And I went back to see if that, and Adam, perhaps you've looked at it too. It isn't necessarily true in every cycle. And as you said, it's because
so
Pluto
when I was
isn't
looking over the next 20 years with Pluto and Aquarius, we get the Mars oppositions book are retrograde, both as Pluto has entered Aquarius and as it's leaving. The opposition, it'll hit 3 times. Which just seemed very interesting. The gravity of this shift, then the weight of these archetypes together are over these next 20 years, because they then bookend these 20 years with this opposition. And so being asked, we have to change where we're putting our energy. How are we going after things? Yes. And that Pluto-Mars opposition that is also that self-other in some ways, with that Aquarian-Leonian polarity of the collective versus the individual.
Because in that polarity,
finding that balance, right? I mean, that's what the opposition is always asking. It's not to ping pong between the two. No. It's how do we hold that level, right? And that they can be great teachers for each other, right? I've got clients that have opposing suns. Could be a really combative marriage. It can also be an amazing marriage because they're each what the other person needs to learn.
Yes.
Well said.
Right.
Beautiful, Laura. That's strong.
It is, and pardon me, as I was just thinking, the reality is that in every opposition, though, Pluto is retrograde. That was what amazes me. So it supports that in frequency that you brought up, that Mars is once in a while, in this case, in this cycle, it is retrograde, because usually if you go back, it's always Mars that is changing the transformation process. Well, we have a little time here for the Sabians, if we find some meaningfulness, because that's always a matter of trying to integrate. And it is for those folks, it rounds off. Some people call the Sabian the same degree, but most often it rounds off to the next. So it'd be 4 degrees Leo. And again, perhaps just the key word, dramatizing achievements, means that looking at your first question there, Adam, like how does Mars work with this cycle of the Capricorn Mars cycle that we're in? I don't know.
That to dramatize one's achievements, to dramatize one's command, one's authority. Another way at a deeper level that can be interpreted is it's a deeper owning of one's own creativity and light. It's a deeper owning of one's uniqueness as an individual before we figure out who we fit in with and what our community is and what our tribe is. And I think that's how that speaks to me. Laura, something else, your insight about Mars retrograde at both Pluto's ingress at that opposition and its egress. To me, because Mars is the retrograding planet of the in and the egress, that will dig us deeper. Mm-hmm. It will dig us deeper into. The way that I work with clients psychologically is through 3 levels of the subconscious: the superficial, the medial, and the deep, and then you get into the unconscious layer, and then below that is all the shadow stuff. So this is like whatever level a person is at relative to their masculine embodiment and self-love and self-honoring and self-acceptance. That retrograde, that ingress and egress retrograde, opposite to Pluto, its deeper or higher octave it's going to ask us to go even deeper in where we are repressing, where we are violating, which is the shadow of the masculine, where we are manipulating and overly controlling, where are we not being caring and compassionate for others and just acting out of instinct. This is all shadow masculine stuff. It's
and some of that too, would you say, then it's a repressing drive, being shadow, afraid to act, afraid to go forward.
Absolutely.
Would be another, depending on what the shadow work is, it can be the non-act versus like afraid to pause. It's for some people, it's afraid to go forward.
To act, absolutely. Yeah. It's afraid to go down into their humanity. It's afraid to go up into spirit, whatever it is. Yeah,
and especially with Mars in Cancer, which really wants safety. That's one of the primary motives of Mars in Cancer. You can see that hesitancy to wait. And I've often thought that finally moving into Leo, perhaps one feels brave enough, because it was in Leo for a while, and perhaps people got ramped up and acted, and then it retreated back to Cancer, and you thought, oh dear, was that really safe? Did that work? And now we're leading into, this is beautiful. I love both of your, and such words like violating, manipulating, afraid to act, and deeper realization. Oy, here we have Pluto's in 4 degrees Aquarius. And of course, these can be interpreted again beautifully from the material to the deeper meaning. But it is focusing on the spiritual energy, which has hope, I think, which is within. It's that center finding, digging down, as you've said, to what's true inside.
Interesting. I really resonate for this with the Destiny Challenge theme of Mars at Mars at the end of Cancer going into Leo during this Destiny Challenge phase. To me, is very resonant with what this Sabian says.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps Wow. Yeah, what did we do here? Do we want to, or do we want to go on?
Well, I think it was looking at the parallels between the 1780 chart and this one.
Yes. And
it's
Mars,
a lot of lines that are there, but like the sun is an exact square.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
almost sun is
Neptune's
8,
are
Leo
opposite.
7 Taurus, right? So we're getting, there's a lot of overlap
Interesting.
in these two charts that are hundreds of years apart.
Yeah. Interesting. Hold on. That Ceres Venus, what is that, a quincunx? Yeah.
Yes, green.
That Ceres Venus, I think, is the link here with all this Mars, Pluto, Leo, Aquarius. I think that's going to be a big linchpin to how we do.
I like that so much, because vibrational astrology suggests that a quincunx actually means that it is something where you need to learn the other. So we need the values to regroup how it works with reclaiming the grief that we're either experiencing or presenting onto people. But the loss, and through food, and motherhood, all these factors of what Ceres represents.
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot to these charts. There's a lot of degree hits.
Yeah. The more Neptune I searched, found more.
Almost opposition, a degree away from
that fascinated me. Yep.
Yeah. Look at that. And Neptune opposite Neptune.
Yeah,
but then trine
Saturn.
And Saturn, and look what's coming in a couple of months.
Yes, exactly. And those two really are sextiles. So in a way, we have what we call this Thales point, where Saturn is in the law of Sagittarius and other cultures. Oh my goodness, that would be the there we go.
A lot of overlap.
The rectifier, you could say.
What may be that peeling of the onion, right, that we're in with these repeated themes in these next of how the United States, but the world moves forward.
In challenge destiny, exactly, during this period. that we're working. Now that all the planets are direct, Mars is not out of bounds. There's good, we're on the horizon for meeting our destiny. Go ahead. Yes.
For the next few months, Venus is going to be rising higher and higher, brighter and brighter as a morning star.
Thank you for joining an insightful conversation on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests awaken consciousness by connecting soul growth patterns with astrology's energetic cycles. Be sure to tune in next week, same time, same place, to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.